So let's try a physics question. Let's say you have a block that weighs 39 newtons on Earth, and it's being pushed against the wall with a force of P, magnitude P, that acts 30 degrees from the vertical. Now your coefficient of friction between the block and the wall is 0.25. So the question is, let's do two questions. The first question is, what has to be the magnitude of P so that this block goes up at a constant velocity? So let's draw up at a constant velocity. What is the magnitude of P? Alright, so what are your forces acting on this block? Let's draw them in. So, you might have guessed your force of gravity. That's probably the most obvious one. Force of gravity. Now, if the block is moving upwards, where is your friction acting? Is it acting down on the block or up on the block? Probably down on the block, right? Friction tends to slow things down and stop things. So force of friction, down on the block. Your other force is going to be pretty obvious too. Your force applied, right? Just P. So force P. And what's your last force? This may not be obvious. What's preventing the block from going into the wall because of force P? The normal force, right? Because when the block is pressing against the wall is pressing back against the block. So, oh, that's not very to scale, but oh well. You'll do the math, it'll all work out. So, what needs to cancel out here? Is anything accelerating? It's not, right? This is going up at a constant velocity, so there's no acceleration. So, all your components need to cancel out. So we can start from the vertical components, sure. Let's say these components need to balance out with the vertical component of P. So we might want to split P into its components. So let's do that. This is force P. It will have a horizontal and a vertical component. This is going to be 30 degrees, right? Stated right over here. So, if you remember your trigonometry, this is your adjacent. It's going to be P times cosine 30. This is your opposite, so P times sine 30. All in degrees, by the way. Don't worry about radians. Okay. So you know that your vertical component of P cancels out with force of gravity and force of friction. So we can make them equal. Sometimes some teachers like you to make it force of gravity plus force of friction plus this component equals to 0, but then you have to worry about them being negative, and I guess it's a matter of choice. Whatever you want, right? Whatever works. Anyways, how I'm going to do it, I'm going to make this equal to this. They're going in different directions. I'm just going to omit the negative sign though. Force of gravity plus force of friction in magnitude is going to be equal to this component. So equals to P times cosine 30. To give you that 0 acceleration, right? In the vertical direction. But now, what is force of friction? You might know the definition of the coefficient of friction is your force of friction over your normal force. Oops, normal force. And if you rearrange that, yes, force of friction equals coefficient of friction times the normal force. So what is your normal force in this case? Remember this force, the normal force, Fn. What is that equal to? Well, since there's also an acceleration of 0 in the horizontal direction, right, because it's not going into the wall or out of the wall, it needs to balance with this force. That's why I was saying it's not very to scale, but that's all right. So your normal force, Fn, has to be equal in magnitude to P sine 30, right? Because that's the horizontal component of P. So, if you plug that into this, force of friction equals this, which is 0.25, right? U is 0.25. Oops, 0.25. Times your normal force, which we calculated here. P times sine 30. Okay, so if we put that back in, what was your force of gravity? It was given, right? 39 newtons. 39 newtons plus force of friction is 0.25 times P sine 30 equals P cosine 30, right? P cos 30. Running out of space. Okay. So now you have one equation and one variable, right? you only have P to solve for. N is newtons. You don't have to worry about that. It's a unit. So let's bring all the P's to one side. Yeah? So let's subtract 0.25 P sine 30 from both sides. You get 39 newtons equals P times cosine 30 minus 0.25 P sine 30. Alright, so to solve for that, how about we factor out a P from this side? So 39 newtons equals P times, and what are you left with? Cosine 30 minus 0.25 sine 30. Yes. Alright, and now you have P times something. So if you divide out the something from both sides, so divide by this value, you'll get the value of P. So 39 newtons over that entire value. Oh, that's not nice. Let's make it a straight line. There we go. Okay, over and this entire value. So cosine 30 minus 0.25 times sine 30. Alright, equals the magnitude of P. So why don't we plug that into a calculator? You want me to use a computer calculator so you can see what I'm doing? Sure, why not? Okay. Actually, remember that 39 newtons. Actually, we can... Yeah, you know what? Just plug it into your own calculator. It's easier. So 39 over cosine 30 minus 0.25 times sine 30. And check that we're in degree mode, if you're in grade 12 especially. I got, did you get 52.63? Ooh, 52.63 newtons equals P. Alright, so that's what I got for the first value. Let's box it in. Now let's try the second part of the question. Remember I was saying we'll try another question soon. What if it's moving down with a constant velocity? So constant velocity downwards. Well, you would approach the question in the exact same way, I think. It's just that when you draw your forces, what forces are you going to have? You're probably still going to have your force of gravity, correct? What was your force of gravity? Remember, 39 newtons? Let's just write force of gravity for now. Force of gravity. But now the block is moving down relative to the wall. So which way is friction acting this time? Friction is acting upwards, right? So force of friction is acting upwards. Now what else do you have? You still have your applied force P and your normal force. Right? Exact same diagram. We just switched friction. Now what's canceling with gravity is P and your force of friction, right? Well, this component of P at least, which was P, this is 30 degrees, so P cosine 30, right? Is this component, and this component will be P times sine 30. Oops, sine 30. This is not a negative, by the way, it's an arrow. Okay. So, we'll get the equation. Force of gravity has to balance out with force of friction plus P times cosine 30, because this is the vertical component of P. Okay, so, and remember, what's your force of friction going to be? Force of friction equals your normal force times mu. And we calculated the normal force to be, remember, P sine 30? So, force of friction equals P sine 30 times 0.25, right? Because that is your coefficient of friction. So, force of gravity is 39 newtons equals 0.25 times P sine 30 plus P cosine 30. P cosine 30 is your vertical component of P, yes. Let's go down a little. Okay, so solving for P again, what I would do is probably factor. That would help. So 39 newtons equals, yes, factor out a P, so 0.25 sine 30 plus cosine 30. Oh, that's not very clear. It's okay. Now if you want to solve for p again, what you want to do is divide this side of this entire value. So, well, both sides. That's why you get 39 newtons over 0.25 times sine 30 plus cosine 30 equals p. And if you plug that into your calculator, make sure you're in radian. No, don't make sure you're in radian. Make sure you're in degree mode. 39 over 0.25 times sine 30 plus cosine 30. And this is going to give you, 39.35. 39.35 newtons equals P. And this is if the block is going downwards. So if the block is going downwards, that would be your answer for the magnitude of P, downwards at a constant velocity. If it were upwards at a constant velocity, you would have 52.63 newtons. Can we get that all on one screen? No, we can't. Okay, let's just copy this. So, copy. So this is, which is the one we did first? We did up, right? Up at a constant velocity, I believe? Yes. So this is if you go up at a constant velocity, that would be your answer. And this is if you go down at constant velocity. Oh, I can spell. See, this is why I'm not in AP English. Constant velocity, you would get that answer. Alright, I hope you learned how to do some physics today. Alright, see you guys.